Hello, I'm Toycat, and you know how usually when you say you're staying at an airport hotel, you mean you're staying at a hotel which is adjacent or very close to an airport? Well, today I have something which is a little bit different because I'm staying at an airport, hotel. So not only is this an airport that's a hotel, but it's one of the most interesting airports that has turned into a hotel because it's one of the most famous airports in the world, or at least from the 1960s, TWA Terminal here at JFK. That's right, I'm in one of the busiest airports in the world right now, and there's an old terminal here, the TWA Terminal, and the TWA Terminal is really famous because it was designed in the 60s to be a super futuristic terminal, to be the future of travel. Look how sleek and curvy everything is. Even to this day, even after all of these years of use, because it was used until the early 2000s, this is an airport terminal that has remained for all of those years, despite falling out of use because it didn't have enough space for jets. It's a fascinating place to see. So yeah, it's fascinating to me to be here at what looks like the doors of an airport. It still looks somewhat modern today, or like some of the design cues have been followed today, but at the same time, it looks super old, and they kind of add to that effect by having 60s cars everywhere, including in the hotel, as you're going to see in a second. You can sit down and you can stare, and you can even have dinner next to one if you really want to, I guess. But yeah, they play into the 60s theme while also very much feeling like a modern airport. One of the things about that really hits me is the Fallout vibe, the retro future, and I love that this hotel kind of fulfills that. And yeah, it's been something that I never thought I'd actually be able to see in person, but somehow everything came together, and it's a nice little thing like that. But it's nice not only because you never expect to see an Arrivals, but one of the clicky ones too, of the classic things. Like you don't expect to see one of those as you walk into your hotel. By the way, with all the old logos, and I don't believe they're real flights because the locations don't line up with the places they're going, but it's still a cutesy thing, right? You also don't expect to see a defunct airline with a real plane that you apparently can go on and off as part of the dinner experience, or you can just watch it from the regular one, but it's fascinating, right? Sorry, I don't know why I'm so nerdy about airports apparently, but I can just nerd out all that weird architecture, weird olden things from the old days of flying or something like that, even though they're days I have literally no experience with. This is always just the coolest thing, by the way. Elevators feel kind of old, but yeah, let's try not to focus on this stuff too much because I feel like I could do this all day and not achieve too much besides saying, "Oh, isn't it crazy being in an old building that's also now a new building?" Isn't there something about that fascinates everyone on some level? Isn't there something about, oh man, even this hallway is cool. I don't know, man. I just wanted to show you my hotel today because usually, hotels are hotels. It's a place you sleep. It's a place that costs some amount of money. Sometimes it varies depending on where you are. But anyway, I'm gonna have to stop myself midway through that. I'm gonna stop myself nerding out and kind of lowering the quality in terms of actual information I put out there, and instead give you a hotel review. JFK Airport, the TWA Terminal. So what's it like to stay here? And I would say really nice. Like, usually hotels are just hotels, but this is the first hotel that does something quirky and unique that I'm in love with. Like, I don't know, look around this room, for example. So immediately as we walk in, this is why having a wide angle lens is good. We've got like, okay, it's like kind of a classy old bar if you want to. Not that I'm ever going to buy a drink at a hotel bar. Like, if you're the person that does that, like, are you trying to relive old memories? Do you not understand how prices work? Tell me in the comments down below. Maybe your kids order for you. Like, did you do it by accident and you just want to pretend that it was a good reason? Tell me if you've ever ordered from a hotel bar and tell me, why you're so wrong about that. Also, look at this poster that's thematic to the thing. Kind of cutesy. All the decoration, actually. It feels old, but like how the old would feel when it's new. It's got that Fallout, the past view of the future is almost more fascinating than our current view because we know our current view will be wrong, so why not at least have a romanticized view of the future? Enjoy all the things that make something great, while also, having a wonderful, by the way, you can turn down the things. Why not have a world where everything's great and convenient, but also, why not have a world that has the best of the past? This is something, there's a TV here too, by the way. I'm assuming I can put it. If it falls off, then I'm gonna stop this video and pretend, oh God, this slides in such a weird way. I've never seen a stand like this. Oh yeah, God, that's a cool TV stand. So like, I probably wasn't meant to do that with my hands, but oh God, okay. But yeah, this is an argument that society is having all the time. This is one of the big debates that divides the world, maybe even 50-50. But there's people who think that because we've done something and it works, we should keep doing it again in the future. And there's people who think that everything should be destroyed, we could start again from scratch. And the thing is both approaches have merit, right? People always like to act like, no, everything must go, destroy it all, burn it all, or like, no, everything works right now, nothing can change. You could even argue that's what conservatism is, and that's what liberal, like wanting to, well, I guess communism might be arguably trying to destroy everything and build a new class structure from that, right? You can argue that like at least two of the political terms, match the definition of like, tradition, traditionalism versus, futurism or something like that. But there's something about it that maybe people miss, which is that I think most of the old things are bad. Most of the things we did in the 1960s were probably pretty terrible. And the reason we romanticize the 60s is because they're not the things we remember. We take a whole decade worth of time and we compress it down into a tiny part of our thought brain, whereas what happened today is probably a bigger part of your brain than all of the 1960s combined, especially if, like me, you didn't live in that time. I was born in 1995. My first flight was in the early 2010s. These are things that don't apply to me, so I have this big view of the 60s that I might romanticize, or I might say, it's not my thing, but then you take the 70s and you do the exact same thing, and the 80s and the 90s, etc. And my honest opinion on this, as far as like, so should we burn everything down, or should we and start again, or should we, keep everything as it is now? Like, I guess another debate is like listed buildings or stuff like that. I think honestly, there is some merit for some amount of the things we do right now to be kept forever, to be memorialized. But I think the percentage goes down significantly over time. Like things we made this year, sure, let's keep it all. Things we made in the last decade, though, I think 90% of it might be bad. Or let's say the last century if you want to. In the last century, how many great buildings were there that are like, oh, this is really good? No, a lot of it was just bad housing or like questionable buildings made for the sake of it. There are some really great exceptions because there's some building makers. They're called architects, right? There are some architects who really, really have a passion and really got to make something like this terminal, like the things you're seeing on screen, how it used to look, the beauty of this place, and that might need to be preserved, but all of the other stuff alongside of it doesn't need to be. If you preserve everything from the 1960s, this wouldn't be special. And my point with that is just to say 90% of things we make are probably pretty bad. And if you go back even further across the last 1,000 years, how many things are worth keeping? Probably less than 1%. 99% of the things we've done the last 1,000 years, probably no one cares about. Like 99% of the people who died, no record of them. 90% of the people in the last century who died, I mean, does it really matter? It's not something that's great to say, but it is something that I think is a little bit true. Making your mark on humanity is really hard, but I think the reason that we don't go full on just tradition, full on just things from the past, like this hotel, the reason not every airport is like this is just a JFK Terminal 5 thing. The reason it's just over here is because this is a particularly special, a particularly famous, a particularly important airport, and I don't know, I'd recommend staying at it because it's cool. But I also don't think that if every airport did this, they would be just as exceptional. I think the cool thing about society is that everyone's filling niches all the time, and one of those niches needs to be the past, but we don't need to pretend like the past is the best thing in the world. 1960s were great, it was the summer of love. Yeah, think about the day after the morning after every night in the summer of love probably wasn't very good. Let's not relive those days, right? Let's think about, the 1990s and, I don't actually know what the 90s are famous for. Like, I don't know, bad children's TV shows that we all think are good because we grew up watching them, like Orange Soda, it's funny because he likes it. No, the truth is, most things that people make are bad. The reason that Friends or this airport terminal or the concept of Woodstock or whatever, the Beatles or whatever else stick around is because they're the exceptional things that actually are good, and sometimes people misjudge that and think everything in that decade must be good, but it's like, no, you can't judge an entire period of time based on one of the things in it or even a group of things in it, because a decade is a long time, man. That is an eighth of your life. If you're a lucky human being, most of you won't be. Sad fact, a lot of you will die before 80. You ever think about that? This is a good hotel review video. So yeah, the TW8 Hotel, I would totally recommend this, if not for the fact that it was something like, okay, it's $200 a night, which is actually pretty, again, to me, that's really steep. Some people might be like, oh, $200. That's only a couple hundreds I must, okay, that's hurting my voice, but that's only a couple hundreds I must pull out of the brassiere. Oh, what a crazy low amount. How dare you complain about that, Mr. Cat? But to me, that's a lot. Like, I think 100 is the barometer around the world. 200 is always like fancy, but it's $200 a night plus tax, and I was like, what can plus tax be? Like another 3-4%? It was like $43 or something. So yeah, just be aware that plus tax in New York State is not a phrase you want to be taken lightly. And also be aware that most of the things we achieve in the next 3 months till the decade ends, most of them won't matter, but some of them might. And those few things are the things you maybe have to care about the most. Or maybe I'm just trying to give you an existential crisis. You tell me, man. Thank you very much for watching, but as always, from behind the TV, third channel, don't care. I think I mean airport-hotel, by the way, not comma. You know, what's the grammar on that actually? Let's get an English check up on the screen right now. That's what this channel is known for, high quality stuff. Definitely not awful things you shouldn't watch because you've only stumbled across the channel by accident and you don't know how to leave it.